Welcome back. I am John P. Today we are joined by none other than Eric Wind of Wind Vintage. How are you, Eric?
Good. Thanks, John, for having me.
Please, thanks for coming on. Today we're going to be talking about some very special watches that Eric has brought from his collection at Wind Vintage. I'm very excited, and I know that you are going to be enjoying this. But before we do that, we're going to jump into what is on our wrist, because you're always wondering. What do you have on your wrist today, Eric?
I have a little bit of a callback to our last video, which is a Rolex Air King for Domino's Pizza.
The Domino's Pizza watch.
We may have single-handedly boosted the prices of these watches over the last 2 months with our video.
If you haven't seen the video, make sure to check the link in the description below where we talk about these kind of special Domino's Pizza branded Rolex.
A Rolex you could never get in stores, because I like how you put that.
Absolutely. And so, guys, by the way, please do not forget to check me on Instagram, The Real John P, as well as you can find Eric at, what is your Instagram?
Eric M. Wind. But make sure you follow this guy. It's good.
Awesome. And today on the wrist, I should mention I have once again, my IWC Portuguese chronograph with the green dial. You can see that on my Instagram. So,
and on a Sinclair watch strap.
On a Sinclair watch strap, sinclairstraps.com for the best premium straps made by the same manufacturers that make watch straps for your favorite watch brands. Okay, let's jump into these watches. Eric, why don't we start with the first watch we have here? What did you bring for us?
I brought 3 examples of the Patek Philippe Perpetual Calendar. That is one of the watches I'm asked for most. I have a reference 3940 first series in yellow gold, a reference 3941 with a second series dial, and a reference 3940 in white gold. So we say 3940J, 3941J, and 3940G. The J is for jaune in French, which means yellow, and G is actually for Greece, which is gray. So they call it gray gold in French, not white gold.
Very interesting. So why don't we pick up the first one? You could tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the 3940 was introduced around 1985. It was one of the signature pieces that came out during the Philippe Stern era.
Okay.
I would say it's my favorite Patek Philippe of the last 40 years.
Out of any other Patek Philippe?
Yes.
Even more than the Tiffany blue dial Nautilus?
A lot more in terms of aesthetics.
A lot more.
Yeah, in terms of aesthetics,
okay.
what I'd wear. Philippe Stern actually chose one of these as his daily watch. He's now in his 90s. His son runs the company, Thierry.
And he still wears this watch?
He does.
To this day.
So it's the fact that he chose this when he could wear anything else says a lot. It's got a beautiful case that is on the slimmer side. It's a perpetual calendar, which I know all you watch geeks and nerds know what that is, but
well, be nice to them out there, Eric. I want to have you back. Let's not go too hard on
Don't get too hard in the comments.
We're part of the collection here.
Yes, I'm a nerd too. But it's a perpetual calendar, which for those, I always explain this to people because they don't even understand what that is. But it means that it accounts for the leap year, February 29th, every 4 years. So that's, in a sense, okay, that sounds simple, but it took the Swiss watch industry forever to come up with that. Originally came out in pocket watches in the 19-teens and only really came out for wristwatches with serial production in the early 1940s from none other than Patek Philippe. So this is a very early example. It's called the first series. If you look, the cutouts on the dial, kind of cylinders straight in to the dial. Some people call it a little bit of a fisheye look to it. And this particular example is from 1986. What people really like is that distinctive look. You can tell that's a first series for those in the know from across the room. And this example has the month and the day of the week in English.
Amazing.
Most of the first series we see are in German, funnily enough, for the German market.
Interesting.
And then we have...
Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah,
I mean, when I think of Patek Philippe, this is kind of the watch that I think of, right? As really the creme de la creme of classic watchmaking, including Patek Philippe.
It is, and I just wanted to show the evolution of this watch. This is, as I mentioned, one of the watches I'm asked for most, and values have, on many of these, have doubled in the last 2 or 3 years.
Doubled, wow.
But we can talk about values toward the end. This is a 3941. from only 1 year later, 1987, but it has a different dial. If you look, it's kind of faceted the way the dial sits. Instead of being a cylinder directly into the dial, it's faceted down more like a stadium. And the 3941 was a unique reference number with sapphire case back.
Display case back.
And the 3940, the first series, all had solid case back.
Sure. So a little bit lighter of a watch, maybe?
Lighter, for sure, significantly on the wrist. And this kind of whole concept with the sapphire back was added to the 3940 around 1992. Then they began shipping the 3940 yellow and white and rose gold models with a sapphire exhibition case back as well as a solid case back. So again, it's just kind of an example of the second series dial. It still has more ornate kind of fonts, smaller Genève.
Yep.
Everything is a little bit more formal looking. Then as you approach the end of production, this is from 2004.
Sure.
It has a bigger text and
the reference on this one?
3940G.
3940G.
But this is where people get confused because it's the evolution of the model.
Right.
So much bigger text, bolder, everything is thicker font-wise and kind of without as much serif on the numerals for the date. So I don't know if you want to discuss values.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, by the way, this is in a different metal than the others, right?
Yeah,
this
white
is G
gold.
denoting white gold.
And as it went on, you had the first models with pin buckles, and then they began doing the deploy.
And slowly, Patek Philippe started introducing that, right?
Exactly. So, that's a change for wearability for sure, because you have the strap kind of reversed as well. I kind of prefer pin buckles myself.
They're more simple, less bulky, right?
Yeah.
Easier, sits on the wrist, especially for a smaller wrist like myself, if you know that's what I have.
Yeah.
But someone maybe here, big, strong guy.
Strapping guy.
Yes, I think we should probably talk a little bit about the valuations on these, if you don't mind, because the reality is these are very special and important watches, and these don't come up all the time, and the prices certainly are going to reflect that.
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's worth noting these watches in the late 1990s already cost about $80,000.
Right.
About 10 years ago, these were trading for about $40,000. And that was the case for a number of years. So, you bought that watch, you lost half your
dress watches were not doing well.
Yeah.
Or watches.
So, yeah, it's not the market we've seen the last 3 years. So these watches began to creep up, especially over the last 18 months. And whereas this watch may have been about 50,000 18 months ago, it's now about 75,000 for something like this with the original box and papers.
Oh, wow.
White gold sells at a premium to the same examples in yellow, and some premium to rose, which is uncommon. Platinum is the most expensive. Those are solid case back only.
Right.
But just valued a hair above the white gold. I personally prefer the white because I like the lighter weight and the sapphire back, making it more wearable.
A little less flamboyant, a little more under the cuff, reserve.
And it's platinum is great too, but it's just the wearability. I prefer a lighter watch.
So interesting though, if you purchased one of these at retail when they were released, you still would have lost today if you factor in inflation and probably the sales tax.
Yeah, I sold one recently that was $79,000 plus tax, bought at Tourneau in 1999 for the original owner, and I sold it for $75,000, now. So that's crazy. Crazy. It was 22 years.
And it's unbelievable because technically these are far superior and more advanced than the watches that are selling at unbelievable premiums that we all know, like the Nautilus.
Oh, yeah, unbelievable. But it would not surprise me if any nice white full set example is north of 100,000 in the very near future.
Oh, great.
There's just not that many out there, and they're moving up.
So something to consider. Any last final words about these watches, these special watches, while we have you here?
I just think that they're really special. People should understand kind of the evolution, and if you're looking for a complicated Patek Philippe for your collection, most people I know that have these have a very sport-oriented collection. So Daytonas, other Hoyers, things like that, but they add one of these as sort of their formal, complicated watch.
And you can buy them at the same price that they were originally.
Yeah, and they're moving up.
And they are moving up. That's a great point, certainly. Well, anyways, thank you so much for sharing these special watches
John.
with us and the audience. I definitely appreciate that. Where can they find you? Where can they find these watches as well?
winvintage.com and my Instagram as well.
Excellent. Well, make sure to check him out, his Instagram, as well as Wind Vintage. Please do not forget to check me out on Instagram as well, The Real John P. Like and subscribe. I do appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. You've been chatting with John P. with Eric Wind.
Thank you, John.